you might use to give a cartoon version of the history of philosophy. So classically, with Locke, there's the idea, you get the person, you've got the person's idea, the perceptual experience, something like that, and then you've got the world out here, the world of objects, right? So three parts. There's you, there's the sensations you're having, the experiences you're having, and then there's the world out there. And the classical problem for this view is that, well, for all you know, the objects might not be there at all, right? I mean, the objects could be just anything they liked, and so long as you had the same ideas, you'd have no notion what was going on. You could switch around all this stuff any way you liked, and your ideas could stay the same. Right? That is the problem of skepticism. Yes? Okay, that's how it comes up. Your experiences could be just the way they are, even though everything changed. So one reaction to that is Berkeley's reaction. And Berkeley's reaction is to say, forget this about objects existing apart from ideas. All it means when you talk about tables and chairs and so on is it's a roundabout way of talking about what patterns of sense data you have. And then the problem this view had was how you get from the experience to the object. But now it turns out the object is just a collection of experiences, like this one. And that's no big trick to get from experience to the existence of patterns in your experience. Right? So Berkeley's view really does, it shrinks the world down to collections of ideas and says, all I ever really mean when I talk about other people is what patterns of ideas I'm having. So there's a kind of shrinkage of the world, but what you get for paying that price is you beat off skepticism. Yes? Is that plain as day? How that kind of strategy works? Okay. Putnam suggests a radically different strategy. And, well, let me just say, well, yeah, I'll come back to that kind of picture in a minute. Putnam's suggesting a radically different kind of strategy. So he's got the same classical, the same classical problem when he's talking about brains in a vat. How do I know that this is a brain, this is a vat. How do I know that the causes of my sensations are what I take them to be? How do I know that the world is the way I think it is? After all, there are all these alternative scenarios. Is that all your experiences being generated by the heat oppressed brain? They're being generated by evil demons? Is your own madness? Is evil scientists? It's just a vat and vat-tending machinery. So you've got this thing, Neo, just to give it a name, and its experiences could be being caused by practically anything. And that's really your situation. So Putnam's solution is really a kind of converse of Berkeley's. Berkeley says, we shrink the world so there is no more to the world than your experiences. Putnam's reaction is the opposite. He says, what we say is, your mind is shaped by the world. The world reaches into your mind and stamps on it whatever shape the world has. So it's, in effect, Putnam expands the mind so that it encompasses bits of the world. You see how that's a mirror image of Berkeley's approach. Berkeley says you get match between the problem is how you get match between the idea and the object. That's the puzzle. Berkeley said, well, there's no more to the object than ideas. Putnam says, what idea you're having depends on what object you're causally wired up to. So there's really no more to the idea than what objects you're wired up to. So here's Putnam. Suppose you're considering this, well, you see what I mean, this subject, Neo. Then Neo is using a language. Neo is uttering words. Maybe they're running through the brain, but there are words there. So let's say that's VAT English. And now we ask what the signs of VAT English stand for. And it says, well, you've got a big VAT here. You've got the brain. So the brain, in a way, the brain is causally connected to the VAT, all right. But the use of the word VAT in VAT English doesn't have any special connection to VATs. I mean, there is a real VAT here, but and there's a sense that the brain wouldn't be able to use the word VAT if it wasn't in the VAT, but it wouldn't be able to use any word at all if it wasn't in the VAT. If you see what I mean? All of its words are causally connected to the VAT in the very same way, right? Because the VAT is what's keeping it alive. So apart from the connection that the brain wouldn't be able to use the word VAT if it were not for the presence of that particular VAT, that connection obtains between the use of every word in VAT English and that one particular VAT. So the word VAT, as the brain uses it, isn't specially responsive to the existence of this VAT. When is the brain going to say, oh, there's a VAT, or not another VAT, or I wish I had more VATs like that one? It's going to say it when there's a particular pattern of electrical activity going on in the VAT-tending machinery. Right? That's what its use of the word VAT is really causally responsive to. So if you are a brain in a vat, then when you say the words, you're a brain in a vat, then what you're saying is, this brain over here is this pattern of electrical activity, is in this pattern of electrical activity. And that's not right. So if this brain utters the words, I am in a vat, let's go over this. If this brain utters the words, I am in a vat, when it uses that sign VAT, is it referring to regular VATs? No, it is referring to patterns of electrical activity. Right? So when it says, I am in a vat, is that true or false? False, because it's not in any pattern of electrical activity. It's a regular brain. Yes? Okay. So if you are a brain in a vat, then when you say I'm a brain in a vat, when I use the words, I'm a brain in a vat, I say something false. Yep. Okay, so when this is a sentence in VAT English, right? All that the brain can use are words in VAT English. Right? So suppose you consider, what does this word VAT refer to? It refers to whatever it's causally related to. This is what we learned from Kripke, right? How about that? Okay, so what is the use of this word VAT causally related to? What prompts the occurrence of the word? Electrical signals. Is the brain in a collection of electrical signals? Oh, indeed. We haven't gone into that, but let us suppose that since the start of the universe, all that has existed is the VAT and the electrical signals. I don't know, maybe it's a battery. Maybe it's a computer. That might be the way it works, but maybe not. I mean, maybe this is a kind of accident. Yeah, you're thinking if we go right far enough up the causal chain here, we're going to get to some real VATs. Right. Well, That's pretty disparate. You might, but you might not. Well, that's a terrible thought. And here's my point. Suppose that you're wrong. Right? Suppose you go back up the chain of electrical signals here and you just get a computer. This is generating the stuff kind of at random. From that. Yeah. So you don't ever get to that. So this can't be talking about that. Any more than in 2 and a half we can be talking about H2O. Yep.
Then how is the brain ever going to say anything true? Because like the word I and brain are also
Right. And indeed the word in, right, yeah. So it's going to be a bit more complicated than I said, right? So when it says, well, suppose, let's take a simple example. Suppose it says that's a tree, right? So that's a tree. So what does tree stand for? A pattern of electrical signals, right? And when it says that, it's pointing to, it's causally responding to some particular set of electrical signals, right? So when it says that's a tree, it's saying this particular incoming set of electrical signals is part of this general pattern of a type of electrical signal that I get from time to time. That's what it means when it says that's a tree. So if it gets, so tree stands for that type of pattern, yeah, and that stands for a particular case of that pattern, yeah. So it's saying these electrical signals are of that type. Is that true or false? It's true, right? So when it says that's a tree, it's getting it right, and so on, yeah. So it's often usually what it says will be right, yeah. It's just when it reads Descartes or something, and it says, well, maybe I have a brain in a vat. Then what it's assuming is false. You happy with that? More or less, okay. I agree that it is a bit distressing, this, because when you're thinking about skepticism, when you think, how can I respond to the skeptic, right? Can I give some real howitzer of an argument that will show that skepticism is definitely false? Then one scenario that I always have at the back of my mind is, suppose you've got it hanging there in your laboratory, a little vat with a brain in it, and you can see on a TV screen what the brain is thinking. And you can see that the brain is thinking, well, now I'm riding a racehorse, now I'm singing in an opera, now I'm winning a prize, it's having all those happy thoughts. And then it reads Descartes, it has these senses of reading Descartes, and it thinks, hey, maybe I'm a brain in a vat. But then the very ingenious howitzer of an argument that you just occurred to prove that you're not a brain in a vat occurs to it. And it goes through your argument, and it says, oh, that's okay, I'm not a brain in a vat. And if your argument was any good, it must be right. But there it is. It's in a vat. You can see it's in a vat. So you actually, sometimes I think you actually don't want to have too good an argument against skepticism. Do you see what I mean? Because then the brain in the vat could use your argument. But it isn't a vat. You can see it's in a vat. That's the whole thing. Do you see what I mean? So it might be better if you didn't have an argument against skepticism and you said, maybe that's right, I don't really know whether I'm a brain in a vat. But what Putnam's saying is, no, you definitely know you're not a brain in a vat. Because if the brain in a vat, if it works through that reasoning and says, oh, it's okay, I'm not a brain in a vat, what it's thinking there is actually correct. Even though it's a brain in a vat. Do you see what I mean? It is no position to formulate the thought that it's not a brain in a vat in such a way that it comes out true. I agree there's something distressing about the situation. But if all the stuff about causal theory of reference was right, then the argument here seems pretty good. Okay, so if I am a brain in a vat when I use the words in a brain in a vat, then when I use them I say something false. And if I am a brain in a vat when I say things like that's a tree or there are birds in the trees, I'm saying something true. So skepticism you can actually rule out. Okay? And you see the strategy of the way this has been done, that the world is shaping your mind. It's not that you've shrunk. And one reason for thinking you don't want too good a reply to the skeptic is if the contents of your mind really could establish for sure that the physical world existed, then that could only be because you had shrunk the physical world so that there wasn't any more to its existence than the things in your mind. Because if the physical world is more than the stuff in your mind, then the stuff in your mind could exist without the physical world. Do you see what I mean? If it's out there independent of you, then how could your ideas guarantee you for sure that it really exists? But Putnam's way of resolving that is to say, well, you couldn't have the ideas you're having unless the world was the way you think it is. So therefore you're having those ideas guarantees that the world is the way you think it is. And of course, I do always have the nagging doubt that someone might be looking at me thinking all this, and there I am in a jar while they watch me. But I still wouldn't be a brain in a vat. It still wouldn't be true that when I utter the words I'm a brain in a vat, I'm saying something right. Okay? Yep. Yep. About what, sorry? I share your sense, right? You haven't really understood this. In a way, you haven't really understood this unless you get the feeling that this is some kind of ridiculous trick, and it doesn't really establish that the propositions you're usually thinking are true. But it's actually very difficult to articulate that properly, because by the logic of the argument, if you just follow through the causal theory of reference, yeah, you take a statement like there are birds in the trees, that comes out true, yeah, in just the way that that's a tree comes out true, because it's all being interpreted in terms of the internal patterns of electrical signals in the vat. So the propositions you think are mostly true. That's just how you express the propositions you usually think. What's left for you to be wrong about? Do you see what I mean? Where's your error? You're very happy to put a finger on where the error is. Yeah. Very good, yeah. Right. That's the thing about that's the thing about my image of, but maybe somewhere out there a scientist is looking at me in my world and saying, but there he is in the jar, isn't he cute? going through these complicated proofs, would you believe it? The thing about that is, from the way you just put it, is that picture that something could stand outside me and my world and look at the two of them and see if what I'm thinking matches up to the way things are. Yeah. But that really makes no sense. The world, the way I'm describing it, that's the whole thing. I mean, I can't have the conception of anything else. The brain in the vat couldn't even formulate the hypothesis of a wider world. It doesn't have the concepts. Yeah? The entire conceivable universe for it is the vat. Yeah? So you can't make any sense of that picture. Yeah? One, two. Yeah. Sorry.
So, I mean, in essence, our brains are in fact, our only way of processing the world is our sensory organs. So you easily imagine that we would take someone's brain out, you know, in the years now in neuroscience,
Yeah.
you take someone's brain out, and there's a body that's
Yeah.
you stick it in a machine that just passes all this information on the axons of the thalamus, and they're functioning human beings, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what our body do.
Yeah.
We are a brain in the vat, and if that sensory input is different between the world, so I don't see how one improves anything with it other than we're just putting based on sensory input, which could be limited.
Well, he's proved that this kind of skepticism is false. He's proved that you do know that you're not a brain in a vat.
But you could be a very, very high intellectual scientist who do by the false sensory information.
You can't be. I mean, when you utter the words, what we know is that when you utter the words, I'm a brain in a vat, you say something false. You follow the argument, you know you're not a brain in a vat. When you utter the words, I'm a brain in a vat, you are saying something false. He's shown that. Yeah. I mean, you're right about the background thing. You don't even need to wait 100 years. And if you think about it, this whole human-built environment, all these buildings, yeah, there's a kind of life support system for human beings, right? That's what civilization is, a life support system for human beings. And after all, what is your body but a life support system for your brain? So your brain actually isn't a vat. It's in the vat nature built for it, and that humans elaborated on. Yeah, and then everything is working just the way Putnam says. There are just trees and buildings and coffee shops and so on out there, right? Instead of patterns of electrical impulses, and you're just referring to all them. Yeah, so it's just another vat, really. But whatever vat you're in, your thoughts are all true of it. Yep.
But I am a brain in the vat, and that would be false.
Well, I'm using vat. You have to understand I'm using vat in an extended picturesque way. And when people say a brain in a vat, they didn't mean I meant a city. You see what I mean? Right, but that's what people mean. They mean things might be very different to the way you think they are. Right? What I'm saying is, suppose things are the way you think they are. Yeah, suppose and skepticism is false. You can still think of that as a kind of a vat. Yeah, but that's only a metaphor. Yeah, there are parallels here. That's all I mean. Yeah.
But I can also think, I mean, like you said, we couldn't even conceive of a world where someone's looking on a brain in that. But I just did. That would be conceivable.
You can't coherently conceive of it.
Sure, yeah.
You can imagine lots of things that don't really make sense. Like I can imagine discovering the square root of 2. I'm sitting on a desk. I write it. The square root of 2. I found it. People have been hunting for that for years. People thought there couldn't be such a thing. I imagine the admiring crowds, the prizes, the fame, people getting it. My biography. Yeah, it doesn't make a bit of sense. You can think you imagine something that doesn't really make any sense. There isn't any square root of 2. Couldn't be. Sorry, yeah.
What he's trying to say is that you are your word, I'm a brain in the vat, but those words can't possibly refer back to that resistance you can imagine. So it has to, like those words are actually mean that you're talking about your own.
That's right.
It seems so when people next and say, well, yes, the statement is false, because that particular statement does not refer back to something.
That's right.
But I don't see how you can make a step out of that and say that, well, you know, without a doubt, this isn't the case. It seems like he's just saying, well, language doesn't work this way. You can't use it to talk about that particular, like, you know, skepticism. Try to talk that way, you're saying false things in every turn. But at the same time, I don't see how he's made any decisive thing against skepticism other than saying you can't talk about it. Like, it's incoherent to try to talk about it.
Right.
Which is like a slightly different thing than saying, well, that is the case. That is the way it is. It's just saying that, well, let's just get past it because
Yeah.
that's what you as well.
Well, I see why you say that, right? But it's so difficult to make any sense of it because what you're saying is there is some question here, there is some doubt here that I think I really have. But Putnam has just taken away all the words I would like to use to express that. And you're saying, well, I accept that it's completely impossible for me to use language to formulate what my problem is. But nonetheless, there is really a problem. Well, you've been reduced to a pretty abject state at this point. Do you see what I mean? I think you don't mind me putting it like that. And the question is there really a sensible issue left? I mean, if someone's taken away all the words you might use, and you're left just saying, well, gesturing, do you really have a coherent problem? You don't. Just forget it. Move on. Right? The point is there is no metaphysical question left. There are only the mundane uses of words. Yeah. Yeah.
So the one thing I agree with is that the world expresses itself on us and our ideas constitute objects of the world. But what I disagree with is
Objects from the world constitute our ideas.
right.
Right.
Our
Yeah.
ideas encompass objects of the world.
Yeah, that's the way of putting it. But let me just pause on that because that's exactly the thing about Berkeley versus Putnam. But Putnam says your ideas constitute the objects. Right. That's how you get from your ideas to the objects. Putnam is saying the objects constitute your ideas. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I can agree with him on that. What I disagree with him is this notion of the universal guarantee that the objects that constitute your ideas are real. Because go back to the example, if you are bringing them back and someone is manipulating the input of your sense organs, you have no way of knowing that they're manipulating the input of your sense organs. So the world that you're experiencing for you is very real, and the world that you're experiencing, I'm bringing it back, is something false. It's kind of sense. But to the evil scientist that is manipulating the sensory inputs that bring you are bringing it back. It's just you can't experience that world because you have no sense organs connected to that world.
Your sense organs are connected to the vat tending machinery. Therefore, you're in a position to talk about it.
But not as a back-end machinery, you responsible for what you smell.
No, all you